What it do? Welcome in the Pitch Me Your Thoughts podcast. I'm your talking head, JJ Buck. This is the box to box menace, Chris Wehan. He knows what it takes to play the game at the highest levels, and we'll still a little bit in mourning after that game. The United States losing 4-1 to Belgium, as it is a weird day. No soccer today, an off day as we record this on Wednesday between the round of 16 and the quarterfinal action, but 27 straight days of soccer. I love it. It works because, of course, it's being hosted in the United States, Canada, and Mexico, so it's primetime viewing. But man, it's one of those things you wish you could have more of it, but you understand why it's so special having it just once every 4 years.
Yeah, 100%. That's a good point. If this was every year, it would not have the feeling like we have on today, the day that we're our first day in 27 days without a game. This is it's the most special tournament in the world, and I think we'll get into it. But obviously, being on home soil, I think everyone is getting to recognize why this is by far the number one sport in the world.
And shout out to fans all across the board. And I've talked a lot about this, especially on my radio show, and of course, going back and forth doing the podcast with you. If you're not a diehard soccer fan, that's okay. This is a tournament that you're going to rally around your country once every 4 years. And I think that's also what is so disappointing, is because of the hype of having the game on home soil. The support was magnificent. Like, this is one that they filled NFL stadiums, and it was 90-10. Like, when it came to the United States supporters in these venues, in these games, that was electric. And then just the crossover fans. I had a lot of non-traditional soccer fans talk to me, ask me questions about the games, get into it. So first and foremost, the fan support was phenomenal. And I say that while also understanding not everything has to be the beginning of something big or the absolute end. Like, soccer is in a solid spot in the United States. Can it get better? Yes. But moments like this should be celebrated with the way the fans in this country supported this team.
Yeah, JJ, you're not gonna get any negativity out of me today. I've been I was known, I was rumored as the negative guy in the locker room for whatever reason. But no negativity for me today. I agree with you. Like, shout out to fans. It was so fun. I still, I kind of, everyone started to know I was the soccer guy in my neighborhood. My life after the field. And so being able to chat with them, and, neighbors are texting me, asking me questions about different rules, or did you see that PK? Like, what was he thinking? And all these different things. So it's brought, I think, communities together, and it's been amazing. I feel like, one thing that I was maybe a bit curious about was, when you see these games, and particularly England, Mexico in the Azteca, you see England fans there, you're like, man, I feel like the Mexican fans are going to just not be okay with losing, and they're going to take it out on someone. And you're seeing videos of these fans high-fiving each other after the game, respectful of each other, England fans respectful of Mexican fans. Wow, what an amazing atmosphere. Almost I didn't know soccer meant this much on this part of the world. And Scotland fans taking over Boston, and just what it means to all these people. It's been amazing to see everyone coming and getting behind their country, and certainly fans really got behind the United States. It's something that I'll touch upon later, maybe in a different way that I think it kind of manifested on the field, unfortunately. But now is when you're kind of starting to see a lot of the negativity, a lot of the noise, a lot of the chatter behind the scenes of people trying to discuss and trying to bash on U.S. soccer. But we really did some special things this tournament, and yes, we went out in a fashion that we all wish that we could have back. And God knows that those players are feeling that more than anyone, wishing that they could play that game over again. But really, man, so many good things happen for U.S. soccer. on the field and off the field with the communities coming together.
Yeah, it's one where you played at the University of New Mexico, and what Jeremy Fishbein was able to do, take you guys to a championship level, and the runs that we saw that program go on, Final Four appearances for what was a mid-major school, and having that experience. I'm a Lobo graduate. I broadcast, Lobo athletics, so looking at U.S. soccer, I almost have that feel just in terms of it's a mid-major program, but the fans have a steakhouse appetite, and it's trying to merge those two things together. And I think what a lot of people kind of get frustrated with is if you look at everything else, hockey, right? How did that happen when with the United States in the Winter Olympics? You look at, of course, basketball, football, sports that have become ours, and we've dominated baseball. But I even think about the Olympics, and someone always pops. There's a sprinter that wins a gold medal. Those are the track and field athletes. But for soccer on the men's side, it feels like that's far away. And I think that's just kind of the balance of understanding that we're pretty darn good at soccer, but there's still a level to get to. And I just think being in the United States, we as sports fans just get so accustomed to, of course, we're going to find a way to be good at it because we've won at everything else.
Yeah, that's a great analogy, JJ. I think you're right. I think you saw a lot of people like, their eyes got wide and were like, oh wow, like, we have like a product, like we have players that are good. Like this is, particularly after the Paraguay game, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, like this team has a chance at something. And yeah, like for the fan that's not accustomed to watching this sport, year after year, yeah, we have a chance. We have the players that can get results. But when it comes down to playing the top 10 best countries, it's going to take our absolute best from 11 players on the field to win those games. And when you're talking about winning a round of 16, a quarterfinal, a semifinal, and a final, like 4 games, like that is so difficult. I saw this the other day. It's like, don't forget that there's only 8 countries that have won the World Cup. Like this sport is so hard. And you're right. Like we are sort of just showing up to the party when you look at things. Like countries have been playing this sport for their lifetime, and we're really just getting to it. Our professional league is still developing. We're still trying to find ways to grow it where, they've had promotion relegation. They're dialed in for decades, of what their system looks like. And we're still trying to figure out, what does our system look like? How do we make it the best? And there's arguments on either way, but yeah, we're really, in my opinion, we're just showing up to the party. And you're right. The American fans, like, we're the best, like at everything, in our mind. And so it's hard for people to fathom, like, what do you mean we can't beat Belgium? Like, yeah, they have, like, they're across their roster is like amazing players that play the top clubs. Yes, we have that too. We don't have the amount of depth that those teams have. Like they probably could field 2 teams in this World Cup and compete, and we just don't have that yet. We're still figuring out a way to improve across the board, but we're getting there. We're starting to put results together, and we, I think we are going to be a force to be reckoned with for a long time. And let's not forget that, we still did amazing things this tournament.
The lessons from this World Cup will definitely be there, and we'll see if Pochettino continues or not as you move forward. And there's some big competitions, Gold Cup and Nations League, that the United States can play in, and the build up to 2030, where you're still going to see a chunk of these guys on the roster, as they continue to grow in their career. I was listening to Dax McCarthy earlier today in an interview he was doing on Fox Sports Radio, and he was touching on this roster, and he mentioned the depth, and I think that was apparent. There really wasn't someone else to go to on this roster. There was, some positives. I thought when Sebastian Berhalter was on the field, he brought a lot of energy, but he even mentioned, the guys that we're excited for, whether it's, Serginho Dest, Malik Tillman, while they're overseas, these aren't full-time starters yet. And there's still kind of that next step for them, even at those clubs, of making sure that your best players, while they might be on a high-profile team, are finding a way to get playing time, because that does matter, especially when you get to these stages.
Yeah, I think the biggest one was certainly there's been a lot of talk about Christian Pulisic, and let's be honest, he wasn't in form coming into the tournament. And I remember Josh Kerr. A lot of New Mexicans will know that name. UNM graduate. He's trying to go and break the world record in the mile here in a couple 10 days or so. He told me after he won silver in the Olympics, and one of his first things he said was, "Man, I got so lucky." And I was like, "What do you mean by lucky?" Because I knew how dedicated and he was with his routine and stuff. And he was like, I didn't get injured. Like I flew across country. Like I didn't get sick. Like my travel was smooth. Like everything went well for him. And he felt like that's what helped him get. And I think there's so much luck and fortune that has to happen for all these players to come together. And I think Pulisic was just at the wrong, was coming out of form. There's always more going on behind the scenes than we realize. And I think just to everyone, I think Americans too, we want to, if something goes wrong, we want to blame someone. We want to be able to it's like the scene from The Office. Everyone's sticking their guns up, it's your fault, and man, there's so much that goes into it. And yeah, they're coming off a club season. They're fighting for their life and their clubs. Like you said, they're fighting for playing time. There's still probably some type of underlying feeling about Americans, at some of these big European clubs, and they're dealing with that, and they come into the World Cup, and yeah, it's just not easy. And I think everyone just thinks we can all sit on the couch and watch the game and have our opinions, but man, it's not as easy as people think.
Of course. And it's, that's what I appreciate about getting a chance to talk with you or other athletes, and knowing everything that it takes to be ready to play the game, especially at the highest level, and the expectations. And I think that's the most frustrating thing watching that game is there's not one specific thing to point to, but something happened, right? Something was off. And I think that is what is hard pill to swallow, because if you lost to Belgium, that's fine. That is a fantastic nation. You mentioned the depth they have. They didn't play Kevin De Bruyne the entire game and still toyed with the United States. And KDB, while it might be at the back end, he still is a very good soccer player, and he didn't touch the pitch, and they beat you 4-1. And I think that's probably the most frustrating thing is, what was the disconnect when you watch Paraguay battle France 1-0, Cape Verde, or the Egypt game against Argentina, and you didn't get that from the United States. I think that's probably what a lot of people are just wondering, what was so off in that moment.
Yeah, and this is my theory. If you can stay with me, if I can articulate it as best, we come off the Bosnia game, we lose our best player to a red card. We all kind of settle into that frustration of red card, no red card. That's frustrating. Okay, we move past it. All right, let's prep. We got Belgium, big game. Back in 2014, they beat us. And, we're going to get them. Seattle, soccer city, great environment. It's going to be loud. The energy starts building on top of what was already building from a great game against Paraguay, good Australia win, good Bosnia win, down 10 men, 2 goals, free kick, all these things. And then the news comes out 24. So the team starts to prepare. Everyone's getting ready. The news comes out 24 hours before the game that Flo can play. And I don't think people got to remember that totally changes the game plan. Everything that Pochettino was saying and going over at that point probably goes to the wayside. And now 24 hours ahead, we got to change your game plan. There's this big excitement from within the team, outside the team, within the whole country. And then you get in all this noise of people, then all this outside noise. People are saying that's BS. This is ridiculous. The White House called them. And I'm thinking to myself, no way the White House called. And then you get the president, whether you like him or you don't, going on a press conference saying, yeah, I called FIFA. I had a chat with him. And so you're just getting this insane amount of noise outside the team, like way more than was needed or necessary. So in my opinion, all this energy builds. It builds and builds, good, bad, whatever it is. The players step on the field and, like you said, just flat. In my opinion, it was like that bubble of energy just burst on the players. And JJ, I've stepped on the field in games before, and I can't understand it sometimes. I can prepare as best as possible, and you just step out there, and your energy is gone. Like you make one run, and you're just like, you're like breathing. You're like, what is going on? You feel like the game is like you're going in slow motion. And that's what I felt. I was like feeling for those players. I'm like, oh my gosh, like they can't connect a pass. Like McKenny like was just missing passes. Like Christian like couldn't separate himself from the defender. And it was just like they got a chance like within a minute, and you're like, okay, like that was a good save, but like dang, like that was a big chance. And then sure enough, they scored pretty early in the game. And it was like, whoa, okay. And yeah, I just think like the energy was just, for whatever reason, it just all came to a it just weighed the players down. And I just think that it's hard to explain, but it just, to me, it looked like they couldn't get out of first gear. And at the same time, they're in their fifth game of the tournament. They've been together for a long time at this point, trying to manage family. You're in Orange County, and then you're in LA, you're back, you're in Seattle, you're back in Seattle. It's just a lot of things that people don't understand, on top of like all the noise that happened around the Balogun story. And yeah, not to make excuses. I think it's just a really unfortunate situation. And that's kind of my theory on it.
I think that's a great way to explain it, because that first 10 minutes, it was bad soccer. They were off. Like they got punched in the face and just stood there stunned. They didn't know, do I put my hands up? Do I back up? Like what happens in this moment in time? And the noise is real. Like there's so much that goes on, the mental side of the game, everything you have to battle to prepare to play any game, let alone a game of this magnitude. Because I know for me as a fan, dude, all that flow stuff, like it took some of the buzz away for me, the build up to that game. Like I was tired of having that debate. I was tired of having to talk about that, even though it's my day job. Is like, it was just so frustrating because everyone's like, yeah, US, that's right. And I'm just sitting there going, even as a fan of sport, like this doesn't feel right. Like it didn't feel good to me that the decision was made. Even if you didn't like the call, it was one to do two wrongs make it right in this situation. So I'm not even impacting the game whatsoever. I'm just a fan, and I felt weird leading up to kickoffs. I can only imagine, as you laid out, the preparation that had to change. The mindset of, okay, we're building in play with probably Ricardo Pepe playing up top.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how we're going to get him the ball, versus what they're doing. You bring Flo back in. You try to go back to that different game plan, but maybe some of those tactics are different because Belgium can take away certain things. And then on top of that, Belgium's sitting there going, okay, we know we're good, but we're going to let you know just how good we are, because you're playing in the United States. You're getting your guy back. And by the way, they didn't take away the red card. They just, they didn't have to serve it right now, which I think kind of gets lost in this. They're like, that's right. Told you it was a bad call. No, they just said he didn't have to serve it yet. They didn't take it away. And so Belgium's sitting there going, okay. And they let everyone know how they felt about that situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your earlier point, I think of course, like we all know it was going to be a tough game, but I think we wanted to see Belgium win the game. And unfortunately, we lost the game. Belgium didn't win the game. We lost the game. And I think that yeah, you're right. It was all fuel for Belgium to go and play this game. And it was all just distraction and noise that the U.S. had to deal with. And yeah, I think the bummer was like that. It was almost like, man, like we gave Belgium a bit of they got to like, I think, walk through the game almost. Like they weren't, to me, like Belgium wasn't that good. Like they did enough, obviously, but like they weren't like by far like very good team. Like to me, when I watch France, I'm like, they are very good. Like to me, they're like, how are you going to beat that team? Even if they play to a 1-0 game, it's still like they had 90% of the ball, and at
Paraguay
any
was
moment, you
in
know
your
that they're
real
going to do
life.
something crazy.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think that was the hardest part. They got to, Doku rested quite a bit. Lukaku came off the bench. I know he hasn't been playing a ton, but he came off the bench. KDB didn't even play. And so it was a bit of a bummer in that regard. And I think Stuart Holden said it all the best. Like it's a familiar feeling. Like we care a lot. I think as soccer fans, like we care so much. We take a lot of pride in being Americans. And when it comes to being on the world stage, like we want to like stick it to these countries because we've always kind of had this look like you're not good enough in this sport, particularly. And yeah, it's a good lesson. We got a long way to go, but like I said, man, like it's not anyone's fault. I think now I see the arguments like all about youth soccer, like it's youth soccer's fault. I'm like, what?
That is
Like,
definitely, we can dedicate an episode to that down the road. I think it would actually be a really good conversation because it's to me it's not, oh, pay to play soccer. You have to pay to play every sport in this country. It's expensive to play athletics. There's
yeah,
club baseball, there's AAU basketball. Football is the one where there's not necessarily club football, but you're still guess what you're doing in summer though? You're playing on 7-7 teams, so that's essentially that. While you're not
yeah,
playing tackle football, you're playing those 7-on-7s. So it's expensive to play sports in the United States. To me, without going down that hole, it's just more of a pecking order thing. It's not first choice for a lot of people in the United States. It's first choice in other countries, and then maybe they get interested in basketball. Like, this Wimbenyama probably love to play soccer, but when you get to 7'4", they're like, because it could put you in goal, but it might be a little awkward. So you gravitate to
yeah.
basketball, and that's kind of why I feel in the United States we're so accustomed, kids growing up playing little league baseball. Everyone plays soccer on the weekends, but I think baseball, basketball, football players gravitate to those, I think, first, and then you kind of have your trickle down. So I'm kind of with you. I don't think that the problem is the pay to play because that's what every sport deals with in this country.
Yeah, yeah. I think I saw some guy's video, and I looked down the comments, and some guy was like, "You go and coach 4 days a week in 110 degrees in Texas, like, and you do it for free." It's just like how can you ask for these coaches to go on the field and coach for free? Um, but anyways, besides your point, like there's no one to blame. I think let's be really, let's have a lot of gratitude for we did see an identity in this team. We did see something that was really positive from this group, like that Paraguay game. Like I don't know if we've ever seen a game like that in a World Cup, like where we played that well, where we dominated the team. We scored 4 goals. We've never won 3 games at a World Cup. We've never done that. I don't know if we've won our group before. Like especially like 2 games in, we win our group. Like there's so many things that happen that are just being thrown to the wayside. And we're just looking for people to blame. Let's blame Christian Pulisic. Let's blame this guy. Let's blame, this guy or the tactics or the depth or youth soccer and all these things. Like, it's just unfortunate. It's sad for the players. It's sad for U.S. Soccer, for the organization. They're taking a lot of heat for this exit. But really, I think there's still a lot underlying that's going to move this sport in the right direction in this country.
Well, as we wrap this up, let's put some positives out there because I'm with you. It's one thing to be disappointed about the outcome, but then, as soccer fans, you say, what is next? And it's a bummer to have to wait 4 years. But when you look ahead to 2030, I think there's some really interesting pieces to the puzzle that you can rely on. You can, I think, pencil in, of course, Flo Balogun up top, Malik Tillman, Weston McKennie in that midfield, and Alex Freeman, probably one of the favorite players for a lot of people in this tournament, seeing him grow. And we'll see, Chris Richard really be a veteran then. But one thing I'm looking forward to, seeing some of the other players emerge and people understand that this team is more than just Christian Pulisic, is taking the pressure off him. Just not having to dub him Captain America. And 4 years from now, we'll see how he goes, throughout his career and how he kind of comes back into this national team and in the coming years, and even what lessons he's learned, from this World Cup. Is him not being the savior. It, I feel like that's going to be better for the team in 2030.
Of course, of course. I think look, like there's only a couple players in our generation that are, of the level to carry maybe a team far. Ronaldo, and Messi. But at the same time, like those guys, like Argentina is littered all over the field with top players around the world that play for the best clubs. And so this sport is not about one player. Like I think to put a whole like the weight of a country on one player, and you're right. I think when he was younger, like there was a lot of pressure for him to, be Captain America and lift this country to high heights. But man, you need 11 players on the field doing that, and we are seeing that emerge. You're absolutely right. Flo up top. Tillman had an amazing tournament. It's going to be fun, I think, and I'm excited about, seeing some of these players. Like I actually was thinking of that during the tournament. Like, man, like I can't wait to follow Flo for the next 4 years to see what he's doing at his club, more in depth. And Chris Richards and Alex Freeman and, all these players that emerged in such a positive light throughout this tournament. And even Christian, yeah, it'll be an interesting 4 years, whether he stays in Europe, whether he continues to push to be part of big clubs, which he has the capability to, or whether he maybe makes the change, maybe he comes back to the US and is a part of the MLS. I know that that's likely something he's thought about and his family's thought about, because he takes a lot of pride in being an American. He's very, very positive about this nation, and he left at a young age. He's been gone for a long time. So maybe he's thinking about coming back, but it's going to be exciting to follow all these guys. And, like you said, there's, the next competition is on the horizon, and then how do we prep, and what does that preparation look like, and who's at the helm, and what is the federation going to be thinking about in terms of leadership. And, yeah, of course, I work for the federation in a very small degree, but I know that everyone in the federation is thinking of, ways that to improve. And, there's a national training center in Atlanta that Arthur Blank put great money up to build, so there's a lot of people behind the scenes that are thinking in depth about how this country improves on the field. And yeah, it's going to be a fun 4 years until we get back to 2030.
And we're going to keep bringing the content to you. Pitch Me Your Thoughts podcast. I have so much fun talking with Chris about all things soccer, and we're going to add interviews and all kinds of stuff. And I think, just getting behind the scenes, you mentioned Josh Kerr, and I'm like, boom, that's a fun conversation. Like, we're going to talk to impactful people, bring you impactful conversations, and keep it going, even with the United States men's national team out of the World Cup. And as our final thought in this podcast, moving forward, what is the final going to look like?
Ooh, that's a good question. I certainly think it's hard to imagine a World Cup without France at the moment. World Cup final. Man, I obviously would have thought Argentina would be in the final as well, but just looking at the bracket, man, it might be man, crazy things can happen. You might see England sneak their way into this final. Who knows? What do you think, JJ?
I'm thinking France, England. Spain, as we've talked about in this podcast, I've been really high on Spain as kind of the team that could knock out France, just because they really good midfield, strong back line, which is important, especially when you're playing that top three that France has. But man, I think France just has another level overall. And how do you, at this point in time, count out Argentina? It's ridiculous. Like, what is happening? It is like that game was ridiculous. Again, we'll have another whole episode on the use of VAR after this, but they were down and out. Egypt was rolling, and they win 3-2. Like I'm looking at France Argentina just because Messi is not from here, man. Like there's extra powers that be, I think, on his side.
Yeah, Yeah, and he even speaks about that. He feels like God has gifted him, and he talks a lot about that. And you're right, there's something special about him being on the field and the way his team plays for him. And they're always a fun watch. And man, some great games. France Morocco to lead things off tomorrow. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe Morocco can surprise people again. What an interesting team they are.
Still plenty of drama, still great games ahead, even with the United States being out. He is Chris Wehan. I am JJ Buck, and this has been the Pitch Me Your Thoughts podcast. Thank you for joining us.